Good morning, friends. It is Monday, and we are here for Monday morning motivation. How is everybody doing today?
It is a Monday.
Yeah, it's definitely a Monday. It's definitely something, but we are here. Let us know you guys are here and you are watching and you are having a good time and how you guys are doing today. And let's see, I saw there were some comments previous to me going live, and for whatever reason, it looks like those have been deleted. So, yeah, my apologies, but I saw Richard Williams was here, said, "Good morning, neighbor." I know Janelle and Maritza and several other people were here saying hello. So if there were some comments that were left before we went live and suddenly I'm not responding to them, I apologize. But for whatever reason, StreamYard decided to take them off my screen today. So as soon as I hit the go live button, it got rid of them all. So.
You gotta love technology. Just part of it.
Pretty wild.
Pretty wild indeed.
Well, let's see who we got here. We got Rockin' Keto Amy. Hello, Amy. She says, "Hi, Chris and Ash. Good to see you, Amy." And Janelle is here, one of our Rockstar moderators, says, "Hello, everyone. Meat for all." Amen.
There you go.
And Cindy is here, another awesome Rock On moderator. She says, "Hello. Good to see you, Cindy."
Hey, Cindy.
And 22QCat is here, says, "You are right. I discovered you on Cindy's channel, Rockin' Keto Amy."
Cool.
There we go. Loving the fact that people are finding people like Keto Amy and other people here because of the community we all share.
It's really cool.
It's really, really good. So, Addicted to Antlers is here. Good morning, all.
Good morning.
Good to see you. And there she is. Let's see. Sorry, my mouse decided to just die for a moment. So hang on a minute.
It's Monday. Nothing wants to work. I don't think we've given the computer or the mouse any kind of
rest.
Yeah, any kind of a rest.
Yeah, we just plug it in, and that way I know it can work.
There you go.
Yeah. See, guys, you just live
Roll
TV.
Roll with it.
You know, I was sitting here and I was like, what would happen if this mouse would just randomly die in the middle of a live stream? And here we are.
And then you found out what would
happen.
happen.
And then I found out. So
there you have it.
Yeah. So let's see what we got here. It's trying to get it reconnected. It's trying to do its thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can turn my phone on too and actually go in here.
Oh no, it's okay. It's all right. We'll get it.
Okay.
We'll get it going.
It's a good thing about Apple products. We got the computer. We both got phones. We are, if one goes down, we just make it work with others. One, yeah.
Just make it work
Chris
with
is,
the others.
Trying to get his mouse though to work and all. For starters, we should definitely start it out by saying Happy Veterans Day. And if you are watching and are an active serviceman or woman or a veteran, thank you for your service. And
yes.
Thank you for all that you do. And we so appreciate you. And would not be able to do things like YouTube or anything like that without them. So
absolutely.
Happy Veterans Day.
Absolutely. And thank you to all the veterans out there. My dad is a veteran.
He sure is.
And a lot of people in my family are veterans, and we appreciate you guys very, very much. Thank you for all of your service. And if you know a veteran, please love on them a little bit extra today.
Yes.
Carnivore K, that's who I was talking about. She is here. Good morning. Hey, Kay, do you
Hey,
recognize the sweatshirts here?
Very comfy.
These are amazing.
Yes.
These are probably the softest sweatshirts I have ever worn in my life. Like, these are going to get so much use. Thank you so much.
Thank you much. And also, Kay, thank you for Mel's new puppy dog toys. She has literally brought them to bed, carried them around the house.
Yes.
She is obsessed. So
she brings them to bed, and then I take them away because we don't want squeaks in the middle of the night making us jolt up out of bed. So,
but she's happy.
But she is hanging out on the couch all day long with them every single day. So, Nana 1776 is here.
Hey, Nana.
And Steven Stone is here. Good morning from Texas this morning.
Good morning.
And PJ St. Pierre is here. Hello, PJ.
Hey.
And everyone's saying good morning. We have Tina Drake. Good morning from Xenia, Ohio.
Ooh.
Very cool. And Addicted to Antlers makes a great point. Everyone hit the thumbs up button. It is free. It is low carb, and it does not spurn on any carb addiction to do so.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that. And it tells YouTube that what we're doing is cool. So we appreciate you guys. Charlie is here. Darth Carnivore. Hey, Chris and Ash. Hey, Charlie. Good to see you, my friend. Sherry, our Nevada pup, is here. Good morning.
Hey.
And yep, there's really Richard Williams reminding everybody today is Veterans Day.
Sure is.
And Beth Mahoney is here. Hey, y'all, I'm enjoying my new guitar. Thanks for the recommendation. I'm going through the free lessons that came with it. Excellent, Beth.
Yes, Beth, that's awesome. Keep us posted.
That's fantastic. If you start having any trouble, you let me know. Here to help. Let's see. Cindy wants to know, Tina, have you ever been to any local meetups? There have been several in the Columbus area over the past couple of years. Very cool. Great way to start to connect with people, find people in your local area and go to meetups and do all that kind of stuff. Very, very cool. Janelle says, hubby is a vet. I may need to step out of chat early as he wants to go out today. Well, that's fantastic. And you go take him wherever and just love on him today and thank him for his service.
Absolutely.
Beth says, thanks to all the veterans. My dad was a veteran too.
Awesome.
Amazing. And Carnivore Mama is here. Good morning from El Dorado, Arkansas.
Oh, very cool.
Very, very cool. Patricia is here, says, hey, Grandma's here. Love those sweatshirts. Very cool. Thank you for being here, Patricia.
Yeah.
And look at that. There's Maggie, the substitute teacher, with a $9.99 super chat. Maggie, that is so kind of you. Thank you for the calm and cozy chats and snacks.
Hey, it's our pleasure.
You are welcome. If you guys don't know Maggie, you should definitely go find her. She is awesome. We love Maggie, and she has a great channel too. Definitely go check her out and subscribe for interesting stuff with food and also like social stuff. And I mean, like she just has a very diverse but very cool channel. I really like.
You can learn a lot from Miss Maggie. So you all go show her some love. She's awesome. And
absolutely. And Scotty McCoy is here. Hello from St. Cloud, Florida.
Oh, very cool.
Hey Scott, very, very glad to see you here, my friend. And Janelle's thanking Maggie for the good mornings in the super chat. Jay Wellman is here. Keep up the great work. Can't wait to try some of these recipes. Amazing. And there is Cindy being a rock star for us all and putting in Maggie's channel link. So if you would like to go find Maggie, the substitute teacher, there is that link in the live chat for you guys. Let's see. Tina says, Cindy DeManch, no, I haven't. I would love to, though. Yeah, you should definitely go see if you can find some local people, some meetups. That's super cool.
There's some amazing people like in that Ohio, Kentucky area that we know very well. So great folks. Yeah.
Lots of cool stuff. So well, cool. So I think, to the best of my understanding here, I think I'm caught up on at least the basic comments this morning. So why don't we just kind of dive into our subject matter? I think that would be a really good thing, and I think it would be really cool to go through a little bit with you guys why I'm even talking about this today. So the carb addiction subject matter is what we're talking about here, and there's stuff that comes up regularly in our lives. I mean, we have become so, I would say, hyper aware of seeing this around us now, to a point where we see this kind of stuff and we see people struggling with this every single day. And if you guys ever feel like you have been a carb addict, please drop that into the chat. Please don't be shy. Don't be ashamed. Don't feel like you somehow can't share this. I think there's a lot of people that struggle with this, and a lot of people that don't know they're struggling with this because they can't see that they have this issue. And that's why we want to talk about this. So please put in the chat if you are in any way feeling like, I think I maybe am a little bit of a carb addict here, and I've got some problems. I have had some problems, etc. I would love for you to drop in the comments and just share that, let people know they're not alone in this, because for a long time I was a very severe carb addict, and I felt very alone when I finally realized that I was a carb addict. And that's truthfully why I started my channel, because I still had to deal with it, and I needed to push forward and try to change that about myself, and I needed some support. So I reached out to the community online by creating a YouTube channel to sort of document my journey of trying to deal with this. And we're going to talk kind of all about that in a minute. But what sort of kicked into gear the fact that I thought we should talk about this today was Ash actually had an experience at the car dealership.
I did.
Yeah, she had an interesting sort of sit there and watch the experience around her kind of thing. And do you want to just tell a very short version of what happened?
Yeah, sure. So basically last week, I had taken one of our cars into the dealership to get an oil change and some basic, maintenance kind of stuff done. And it was about 11 a.m. or so. And they have a really nice waiting room where you can wait. And they have a snack bar with like Doritos and all kinds of chips and cookies and that kind of stuff. Coffee, they have hot chocolate, tea, water, sodas, that kind of a thing. And so I brought some work and I sit down at a table and I kind of just start working on, different stuff for music and the channel and doing my thing. And a few minutes after I sit down, a family walked in right behind me. And the dad, you could tell, had a lot of different health problems. He was actually in a wheelchair for one, but not even just that. You could see his skin. He had some kind of issues, just looked very unhealthy in a lot of different ways, not just being able to move, but just, bound to a wheelchair, but just unhealthy. And then the mom was right behind him, and she must have been not even 5 feet tall and easily pushing, like 500 pounds. I mean, you could tell this woman was beyond just morbidly obese. And she just really had this like kind of deer in the headlights kind of look. She was very just unaware of the world around her. And you could tell she seemed very depressed, very down. And with them were two little girls who I found out through just overhearing conversation were about 4 years old. And then the other was 6 years old. And these girls were not small. I mean, even for their age, they were already starting to literally blow up and become quite large. And like Chris said, it's kind of a long story, but just to shorten it, I basically sat there over the course of about an hour and a half while I was waiting for my car to be worked on. And within 10 seconds of this family walking in, before they even sat down, they walked into the snack bar and these girls grabbed several packs of Oreos and Doritos. I mean, several packs. And they sat down and they started eating. I mean, right out of the gate. Then they started to go back and have hot chocolate. And overhearing conversation, it's like these girls have already had breakfast. It's 11 a.m. This is nothing but a quick snack of here's 3 packs of Oreos, 2 packs of Doritos, and a cup of hot chocolate. And then they were saying that they were hungry and wanted to go to lunch right after. So they had plans for that. And basically I watched them eat right when they walked in. They sat down. Within 30, 45 minutes, you could tell that the insulin spike went like this, and then it went down. And the girls started to fight, and they started to argue. And then they would try to get them outside, and they didn't want to do that. So then they couldn't get control of these girls. And so then they went ahead and they gave the youngest one more hot chocolate, which calmed her down. You had another 30 minutes or so. She went from being fairly calm, kind of just energetic, to crash, boom, temper tantrum. And it was just heartbreaking because I had the answer. But if I felt like if I walked up to them, I could, they would think I was crazy. But I just watched this interaction happen with this whole family, and you could see the misbehavior in the girls, and they were talking about how they're getting in trouble at school. Long behold, right after an hour after lunch, they were questioning her about something that had happened. They got the email sitting there at the table. And, then the dad went outside for a minute trying to get the girls out of the way and try to get them out of this waiting room and try to get them to quit fighting. And he came back in and went, his wife, like I said, was just in a glaze. It was like a deer in the headlights look, like she was just so unaware of everything happening around her. And I cannot imagine how much pain that woman must be in to be that overweight. But he walked in and was like, hey, there's a nice little bench outside. Do you want to come over here and sit down, maybe outside for a little bit? And she was like, nah. And he's like, well, why not? Why not? And she's like, I just don't feel good. And she then started to talk about how she feels super depressed. And she was just telling her husband basically how she's just having a really bad day and is depressed and doesn't feel good and doesn't want to do anything. And she's saying this, and I can't help but notice the 4 packs of Oreos that are sitting on the table in front of her. And it was just a very heartbreaking experience. And none of this is meant in any form of a judgment. but it is an observation because I used to be that exact same way, and so did Chris.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at that now, and my heart literally breaks though, because I have the answer, and it's like, this is why what we do on the channel is so important.
Right.
But it was a very eye-opening experience to be on the other side of that and to look at this family and all the things that they were struggling with,
Mm-hmm.
not just their weight, but their overall health, mentally, physically, emotionally, how it affected their marriage and their children's relationship with them,
Right.
and all of these things. And it was just heartbreaking to
Right.
sit back and watch.
Yeah. So it's interesting how we have really gotten to a point where we go out anywhere, whether it's, we're grocery shopping, we're the rare occasion we go out to dinner someplace like the car dealership, where, whatever it is we're doing, when we're out and about, I'm not even looking for it. I just recognize this pattern of people who are, in whatever scenario, eating and drinking trash.
Mm-hmm.
And within 20 minutes,
mm-hmm.
like the first like 5, 10, 15 minutes, they kind of seem like, oh, all is good, and they're happy and they're enjoying this, and whatever. And then within about 20 to 30 minutes, they start to change. And then within about 45 minutes, they seem irritable.
Mm-hmm.
They seem like they're brain fogged. They seem like they are bickering amongst themselves, like the girl's misbehaving, like these kinds of things. And it happens again and again and again and again and again everywhere we go. When we were on the cruise we took for our honeymoon 3 years later after we got married, we would sit at the table, and people would sit at the table to eat dinner with us. And the first thing they would do is they'd start ordering alcohol. And alcohol is already, something that can start affecting your mood, because it's a recreational drug with, let's scientifically, we know it's a slow poison. But people would order alcohol. And of course, on a cruise ship, it's all fruity drinks and like all these kinds of things. So it comes with all this sugar. So they would drink this and you could see the complete devolving of the conversation between people, like these couples that are sitting at this table with us. And they would eat and drink, and within 30 to 45 minutes, they'd just be bickering and sniping at each other, getting snarky. Sometimes like the guys would be just jerks to the women, and the women would get super catty with the guys. And like, it was just so apparent that the sugar was starting to affect their brains. And so I've really thought about this for a long time, and I've compared this with my own experience. And this is why I want to talk to you guys about carb addiction, how you might recognize if you have a carb addiction, what I've gone through, and what you can do about it. And none of this is medical advice. I am not a doctor. I am not an addiction specialist. I am not a psychologist. I am none of those things. So none of this is in any way medical advice or me suggesting do what I did or whatever. This is me giving you my advice from my own personal experience, and me telling you anecdotally, this is what I think would be a good approach to trying to do some of this stuff. But you should consult a doctor or a therapist or someone if you feel like you have an addiction that you need to deal with. So with all that out of the way, there is a very distinct pattern that I think we all know. Like if you think of a drug addict and you think of someone who they smoke something, they shoot something up, they snort something, whatever it is they do, what is it we kind of know happens, right? They're going through this really bad scenario where they're jonesing for something, like they're shaking, they're irritable, they're all this kind of stuff. And it's withdrawal, right? They're feeling terrible, they're struggling, and they're jonesing for something. And so they get a hit of whatever it is they're addicted to. And then they feel so good. They feel like the high from it. Like they get this enjoyable experience. And then over time, depending on what it is and how long it takes and what their body does, they kind of come down off that high. They sort of seem kind of more normal. And then they start to go through withdrawal and they need it again.
Right.
And it becomes this cycle and they can't stop. And they will harm themselves. They will harm other people. They will throw everything away in their life if it's bad enough to get more of this thing. Now, this is not judgment, because since going through what I have gone through to figure out, okay, carb addiction and how we try to get over this, I think I understand to some extent so much more what it is like for people who are addicted to things way worse than I was.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine having to go through what some people have to go through just to try to function on a daily basis. So no judgment whatsoever, but we need to understand this, because if you don't know it's a problem and you don't logically approach treating it, you can't fix it. So the problem with all of this is most people don't recognize sugar as an addictive drug.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's marketed to us as, oh no, it's fine, just calories in, calories out. Just don't, it doesn't matter what you eat, as long as you don't eat too much, you'll be fine. And quite honestly, I think that's the biggest bold-faced lie that you could possibly sell us. And why would people do that? Because if they sell us that lie, then they can keep cranking out cheap junk food that's highly addictive, that keeps us eating it, and then keep giving us more solutions that are medically based, kind of, medicine and treatments and, whatever. And then we pay for all of that too.
Mm.
So instead of not making as much money on the front end, they make way more money on the front end. And then the medical industry makes way more money on the back end. And everyone except you who is struggling with it wins.
Mm.
Everybody makes money. Everybody has power. And it's at the expense of the person who's struggling. So I think sugar is not recognized as an addictive chemical. But it absolutely is. First of all, there's plenty of information out there. You can Google this, that if you eat sugar, your brain lights up the exact same way someone using cocaine does.
Right.
It is a real thing. So the problem is, most of the foods that we don't think of as having sugar, that are filled with carbohydrates, as soon as your body digests it, it turns into sugar. It turns into glucose the exact same way as table sugar.
Yeah.
It's no different. Like, you can eat a potato, it turns into sugar in your body. I thought it was really cool. Dr. Barry posted this thing the other day, and I forget when it was, but it was like a picture, and it was a fructose molecule. And it said, and it was actually two of them, and it showed like, two fructose molecules, and it said, notice the subtle difference between these two molecules. One is good for you, and one is not good for you. It's unhealthy and will kill you slowly. They were both the exact same molecule. One of them was fructose in fruit juice, and one of them was fructose in soda.
Oh, really?
It was the exact same molecule. And so people don't understand, when you have sugar or fructose or any of the glucose, fructose, any of these sugars, whether it's in fruit or fruit juice or potato or any of these other things, or whether it's in soda or sugary candy snacks or, potato chips or whatever, your body doesn't recognize the difference. Digests it, it eats it all the exact same way. It has the exact same effect in your body. So when we start to think of sugar and, like glucose and fructose and these things as addictive chemicals, as a drug, and then you take the two and you say, well, this is the same thing, you start to realize all of these things can very quickly become addictive. And I think there's a lot of people in the comment section that are talking about being carb addicts right now. That shows people struggle with this. So let me tell you what happened to me, and I'll tell you sort of why I realized I was a carb addict and how I kind of dealt with all of this. And then I have some information pulled up on my screen here I want to share with you guys. So I went carnivore when we did keto, and then we did carnivore. I did carnivore. She stayed keto, and this was back in 2021. And we were doing really well, and I felt much better because I'd gotten all the carbs out of my diet and all these things. But I never dealt with the fact that I had a carb addiction. I didn't want to admit that I had a carb addiction. I'd heard of people talking about having a carb addiction, so it wasn't like a foreign concept to me. But I didn't really think of myself as having sort of a problem with this. I just thought like, oh, I just got to get it out of my diet, and then I'll feel a lot better, and all this is great. And after we got married and I was doing really well, I started playing around a little bit with carbs. And I wasn't just doing like keto carbs. I was doing like processed carbs occasionally, right? And not a lot, just a little here and there. And I'd make something special. And like, when we had gotten married, like we had a few celebratory meals and, things like that. And then it started turning into, well, I'm going to make this because that would be really good this week. And then I'm going to make that because that would be really good. And then it was a couple of times a week. Then it was 3 to 4 times a week. And then it was every night of the week. And I would be making all of these standard American diet dishes that I had made for us before. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it was enjoyable. And some of them, I even felt like on the surface, oh, this is cheaper, because we were really struggling financially, like really bad. And, in 2020, we had lost pretty much everything, and several businesses, both of our jobs. We had to get a new car because mine blew up. We got the house that we lived in was sold out from underneath of us instead of us trying the way we'd been trying to buy it. Like, all of these different things happened, and we lost everything. And we took on so much debt to just be able to stay here. A lot of the people that we knew at the time who went through similar things to us all moved away from Nashville, ended up like moving home with their parents, or these different kinds of things.
They all filed bankruptcy and had to live with their family.
A bunch of people filed bankruptcy and went to live with their parents because the entertainment industry was just gone for like a year and a half. So we were very blessed to even be able to keep our heads above water, even by just taking on debt. But we were really struggling financially, and we were both working and like going through all, and it was just a lot. So stress, which of course puts more pressure on your addiction tendencies. So on the surface, it was like, oh, well, this is good because I can buy rice and I can buy beans and I can buy pasta and I can buy all this stuff that looks super cheap. Well, then you start realizing I'm having multiple meals a day. I'm eating like 3 to 4 times the amount of food that I normally would. And I keep buying snacks and I'm buying soda and it went off the rails, and I started buying so much stuff and ended up costing more money anyway. So there was no financial benefit, but more importantly, it was a year before I got it back under control.
Yeah, a little under a year.
Yeah, I think it was close to a year, and I struggled. And Ash, being the lovely, wonderful woman she is, kind of supported me without saying like, yes, you should eat all of the carbs, kind of supported me in like okay, we'll figure it out sort of way, and we'll make it work. And like, she wasn't trying to be judgmental and, point out, hey, you're binge eating, but, she was trying to encourage me, like, exercise, make better choices, move back towards keto and carnivore. Like, she was being very gentle without being super judgmental. And it was
because
very
if I
hard.
can just say, speaking of addiction, very important point here.
Yeah.
For those wondering, well, why didn't you just tell him, to knock it off or whatever? You cannot change somebody, and he has to change and want to be different.
Yes.
I cannot make him feel that way.
Right.
So
right. And we have some stuff over here that we're gonna talk about with a little bit of that. But absolutely, you cannot badger someone into believing something they don't. So she was very kind and encouraged me to do something better without beating me up. And when I finally realized I needed to change this, was I couldn't move up and down the stairs. I was struggling. I was in pain again. And I had lost, when I did keto and carnivore the first time, I'd lost almost 100 pounds. And I think I was down to like 290 or something like that. It started at like 385, that I know for sure. And then had lost down to 290. I think it was roughly that. And then I stepped back on a scale when I was like getting to where I was just like, okay, nothing fits, and I'm super miserable and all this stuff. I was back up to 345. So I had gained like 55 pounds back. And I'm very thankful that I lost 40 pounds that never came back. But I was like so disappointed that more than half of what I had lost had come back. So I started thinking about, okay, what am I going to do about this? Because we were getting ready to move. We finally were going to get out of this horrible apartment we were living in a dangerous part of town. We had saved money and gotten at least enough of our debt under control to where we could get approved to, get into a better place. And so we put on a waiting list. It was a whole thing because where we were living was just getting really dangerous. I mean, there were drug deals and crime and all kinds of stuff like in this whole area. It was just because of the pandemic, it had gotten worse and worse and worse, and all of the the lower part of life that had come from dangerous areas within the city, it just got too expensive and it moved out. And so it started coming to the area where we were. So we did the work to get out of there. And I was like, we're going to have to move. We live on the 3rd floor. I'm not going to be able to carry anything. Like, I can't even go up and down the stairs one time without being out of breath and needing to sit down. My knees hurt, my feet hurt, my back hurts. Like, there's all these kinds of things that are horrible. I can't do it. And so I realized I needed to change. And so I told Ash, I said, I don't know how we're going to do it, but our budget, because at this time I still didn't understand that our budget was suffering. Still thought the stuff was cheaper that we were eating. And I said, I don't know how our budget's going to do it, but I've got to go back to eating carnivore. I know that's what works the best. I know that's how I feel good. I've got to do it. And she said, I support you. Let's do it. She goes, go back to carnivore. And she's like, I'm not feeling good from the things we're eating either. Although she doesn't deal with the addiction of the way I do. She was like, I'm not feeling good and I've gained weight and I would love to go back to doing the clean keto thing like I had been doing. I was like, okay, so we're going to do this. So we went back to doing it. Very quickly found out the budget was better. And because I just wasn't eating snacks and, constantly craving things. And when you're going through this, you find all these reasons you need extra stuff, extra things, desserts and soda and, the snacks and the constant, let's go out to dinner here, or let's pick this up on the way home, or I'm craving this, or let's have this for dinner tonight. And, it takes this special ingredient. So let's go get that. It becomes a snowball effect. So our budget got way better. I started doing carnivore. And then it was a few months into carnivore, I started this main Chris Cooking Nashville YouTube channel. And I started putting my health vlogs on there. And then with the idea that I would be cooking and showing the food that I was eating on a carnivore diet. And I never expected to be doing so many recipes. I just was kind of doing basic, like cooking meats and different things like that. So I started doing carnivore. I started seeing all these benefits and I was starting to share my story. And then that's when I started finding I was still having the cravings. And I recognized finally, because I stepped away from it, I recognized I'm a carb addict. Mm. And that was why I wanted to start the channel. And that was like really evident in the fact that even though my body was good, I was missing things like mashed potatoes and bread and pasta and all these things. So I started trying to come up with recipes because there weren't a lot of recipes out there. And the ones from the handful of creators that did this kind of stuff that were out there, I really wasn't a fan of. And, no offense to any of them, I just didn't like the recipes. And I made them for Ash and she was like, nah, I can't do this. It tastes like eggs or it tastes like whatever. And so I thought, well, if I'm going to make any of these recipes, I'm going to have to tweak them, adjust them, change them, do them my own way, whatever, because these aren't going to cut it. It's just not going to work. She doesn't like it, and I'm not a huge fan of it. And I really don't feel like I'm having something very good. And I started to recognize there was more to my carb issues than just wanting the sugar. Like the sugar and the glucose of eating the carbs, yes, that was there. But I recognized that even though I got my body through the withdrawals of the glucose, and even though I was off of the addictive foods, I was missing something else. And that was the social and cultural implications of being able to cook for people and being able to use food as a celebratory thing, using food as something that is a recognition and a intentional act, a cultural thing that is acknowledging the blessing that you have of the plenty that you have in your life because you are well fed and you are well nourished. And this is part of human history. When the harvest was good, when the hunt was good, when people had plenty, they feasted and they celebrated. This is part of human history. This is part of what makes us different than the animal kingdom. Because animals, when they have lots of food, eat as much as they possibly can, and they move on and they don't recognize it, and they're not really sure where the food is coming from tomorrow. They just eat as much as they can because it's a survival mechanism. Humans, when there is plenty, yes, they eat to their fill, but they do it in a celebratory way because they understand this is good news. This is something worth celebrating because our tribe, our family, our whatever group of people has an abundance of something that means we are feeling safety as we are looking forward to the next however long this plenty of food will last us. We have a time in our lives where we don't have to stress about where is tomorrow's meal coming from. That is culturally ingrained into what we do. And so we have all these social expectations around food that have been developed for thousands of years because of humans celebrating plenty. So I recognized this was a problem for me. And if I can't cook and if I can't do these different kinds of things, I'm feeling loss. I'm feeling empty. I'm feeling like something is not there. And if you think about, for example, Dr. Robert Sives, he's the carb addiction doc. He talks about, like, if you're taking soda out of your life and you don't replace it with something, say like coffee or tea or, something else, he's like, if you take an addiction away and then you sit there with just nothing in its place, so you don't take a better habit and put it in place, you have this empty hole and you feel empty and you're not replacing it with anything. And so he encourages people to put something in that empty hole. Now, he is not necessarily one of those people who would suggest you do the recipes like I do as the, the replica foods of all these other standard American diet stuff. And that's fine. He's got his own approach. For me personally, one of the things that was an empty hole was cooking and feeding other people, specifically Ash, because I cooked every day for us because we didn't have the money to go out to eat for a long time. And I cooked all the time. Suddenly that was gone because it's like, okay, well, yeah, I can throw another burger patty in an air fryer. I can throw another steak in a skillet. I can put another chicken in the oven. Like, fine, there's nothing wrong with that. But if that's the only thing I ever do, I don't really feel like I was cooking anything. I felt like I was just phoning it in, as they say. And I grew up in a family where you cook for people you love. So it's like, so how do I tell people I love them when every time they see me, it's like, hey, here's another steak, and some people, like, that's fine. And they enjoy that. And that's cool. But that's not the way I cook for people. That's not what my family, especially the standard American diet part of my family, would think that I would do. I mean, you have to remember, I owned a sourdough bakery. I did handmade artisan sourdough and 1 pound cinnamon rolls and biscuits and like all this kind of stuff in our bakery. And I mean, I can bake bread like no one's business. And it's good too. It's not like stuff you buy at the store. I mean, it's really like the good stuff. And I can make pasta from scratch, and I can do like all of these different things. I make Cajun food and like all this kind of stuff. So this is what people had come to expect of me when I was cooking, and not because they expected it, but it was just kind of what I had set them up to think I was going to do. So for us, when we were doing this, we were already cutting out so many things in our lives. And then I can't make a single thing that is anything more than a beef patty or a steak or a chicken thigh or, something like that. And those are good like 99% of the time. But I was missing the fact that on that 1% occasion, I don't get to do anything else. That's where the idea of making recipes came from. And like I said, I wasn't a fan of a lot of the recipes I saw online because I thought they were cool, but they were like halfway to where they should be. And a lot of them were older recipes that had been from earlier on in this whole keto and carnivore movement on YouTube. So they were a great starting place. And I was like, cool, these creators went this far. Now let's take it here and let's go the next step. And that's what I tried to do. So that's what turned into me doing recipes for Chris Cooking Nashville. And it was only through that I was able to do 365 days carnivore without any cheat meals. And I did that because I also knew I need to prove to myself that I do not need these carbs in my life. I need to do that because I need to explain to myself, this is an addiction and you have got to stop it and you have got to get that under control. But if I had the recipes and I was really feeling like I wanted something, I would create my own version. So instead of going out for a pizza, I created my carnivore pizza crust. Now, is that dirty carnivore? Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of dairy and there's spices and things like that. And I was okay with that because I realized that minimal amount of glucose that I get from spices and the dairy is 100 worlds different than what I was eating before. And I did not see that as being in any way a threat to what I was doing, because if I stick to this list of things that are all carnivore, that are all animal-based foods, the tiny trace amounts of these other things, like, yeah, sure, I'd love to eventually have that be super clean and get that out of my diet, but that's not the right focus right now. I was figuring out, what do I actually need to treat? And what I needed to treat was my desire to eat things like rice and pasta and beans and bread and sugar and desserts and, like potatoes and all these crazy things that were just killing me and flaring up this addiction that I had. And I found I was far less sensitive to things like dairy carbs and animal-based carbs. So, like, there's a little bit of carbs in an egg yolk.
Right.
It's like a half carb or something per egg. Way, way different the way my body reacts to those carbs than what it does with the other carbs. So there were multiple moving pieces of this. There was the oxalate issue that I'm super sensitive to with a lot of the plant products, specific ones that I've now really understood which ones I can have and which ones I can't over time. There was the cultural and social element of being able to cook interesting and fun things, because I loved being in the kitchen and I'd taken that all away. I couldn't cook for other people, which, took all that away because I was the weird guy that made all the meat. And if I was cooking things that I wasn't supposed to be eating, that would make the cravings get way worse. Because then it's in the house. And I had also dealt with going through these withdrawal symptoms of taking all the glucose out. So there were multiple moving parts, but I got this under control. I did 365 days carnivore, no cheat meals, just the dirty carnivore thing. I had coffee, I had spices, and I had dairy along with my meat and my eggs. And I was able to do it. And what happened was, I realized somewhere throughout that whole process, I gained so much control over my understanding of what food is and what food is not, and what carbs do to my body, that now I look at carbs as a recreational drug. And if you choose to eat them, that is a choice to use a drug. It's no different than drinking alcohol. It's no different than smoking something or injecting something or snorting something. Maybe the immediate effect that it has is different, but the overall choice you're making and what it means in terms of what you're doing to your body is the same. And that's one of those things where every person, as a full-grown, competent, hopefully consenting adult, you can choose what to do with your body. And so you guys know, if you watch my channel, I do occasionally have things like cheat meals. Like, sometimes I have more keto stuff because I know which things bother me and which ones don't. And I keep it pretty rare because it's still not ideal for my body, but I do okay as long as I avoid certain things. So on the rare occasion that I want something, I have more keto type stuff, or on a very rare occasion, if there's a reason, I have cheat meals. And here's why I do that. And I'm not suggesting you do this. I'm saying this is what I do because I always promise to be transparent with you. I occasionally have cheat meals. And what I do is, the very next day, I go very strict carnivore, like beef, salt, water, and my cup of coffee kind of carnivore, like very, very strict. And I will stay that way if necessary until any weirdness in my mind from that cheat meal is gone. And I do it for this reason. And I'm not saying you should. I'm not saying you'd be like this. I'm saying this is what I have found works for me. I do that because I have the celebration, or whatever the reason is. I have that thing I shouldn't have the day before. Then I eat beef, eggs, salt, high fat, like that kind of stuff. And I pound protein and fat. Very, very clean carnivore. I mean, like BBBE kind of carnivore, plus my coffee in the morning. And I don't even put dairy in my coffee anymore. I'm just doing butter now. I make myself very full. I eat until I am very comfortably stuffed, as Dr. Barry always says. If I am still thinking about whatever the thing is I had the day before, or snack cakes or rice or pasta or bread or potatoes, or let's have this thing or let's have that thing, or I want this snack, or I want any of that, any of the stuff I know I shouldn't have. If I'm still thinking about it, it is like shining a light on it as bright as you possibly can, that I can now see that for what it is, which is addiction. And I'm not afraid of it anymore because I know what to do to control it. I know what it feels like to have to say no to it when my body is craving it. And I only get very minimal amounts of this anymore. I have beaten this into submission so much that I can eat something like a cupcake at my brother-in-law's engagement party when he and his wife got engaged back like last year, whenever that was anymore. I can't remember. It was not long after my 365 days was up. And I had a cupcake, and I ate a cupcake, and I didn't have a single craving the next day. I very rarely get cravings, even if I have a cheat meal. And if I do get cravings, I see them so plainly and clearly for what they are that I put them in a little box over here off to the side, and I just squash them. I drown them out with beef. It's what I do. It's like, it's like this annoying little craving thing going on. And I literally just like, here's 100 pounds of beef. And I, squash that craving. And it, for me personally, gives me so much more confidence and control over what happens in my body. Because when I did not have control over this, I would horribly binge on carbs. I'll tell you a few things I did, and this was back before Ash ever even knew me. I would be wanting apple pie. I'm craving an apple pie. I would have dinner, which was already carb heavy and junky and whatever. And this is when I was working in higher education. So I was a single dude with a full-time job, and other than my kind of monthly expenses, some of which were covered by the fact that I worked in higher education and lived on campus, I had money to spend. So I would do things like go out to dinner someplace, eat really high carb stuff, and then I'd swing by the grocery store on the way home, and I would buy an apple pie because I wanted apple pie. Now, when I say I wanted apple pie and I would buy an apple pie, I would go home, I would turn on something on Netflix or YouTube or something that I wanted to watch, and I would sit in bed with an apple pie in the container I bought it in from the grocery store, and I would use a fork or a spoon, and I would sit there and eat apple pie out of that container until I was so stuffed and so sick I couldn't eat anymore. And a lot of times that was the whole apple pie. When you eat an entire dinner and then you sit down and eat an entire apple pie, you have a real problem. I mean, a serious, serious problem. That's like rehab level problem. And I did the same thing with cheesecake. I did the same thing with, I want mac and cheese, so I'm going to go make 2 family-sized boxes of mac and cheese, sit down with a gigantic bowl and a spoon, and that's what I'm having for dinner. That's the way I did stuff. I binged on things. It's embarrassing to think about the things that I did, and it was so out of control, and I didn't even recognize it as an addiction. So that's the other part of this title. You might not even recognize your carb addiction. And why do you not recognize it? Because when you are in the middle of something like that, you're doing this and you don't even think about what you're doing to your body, because, and this is something, if you've never experienced this in your life, it's very hard to understand. And I think this is why there's so much stigma and judgment that goes with this. You are not thinking that you're feeding an addiction. You're just doing something that feels good, and it is so subconscious, and you are so inflamed and have so much brain fog that you can't even see clearly what you're doing. Like, your understanding of how much you're eating or what that looks like to someone else sitting there watching you do it, it's gone. You have no reasonable way to get any kind of logical concept of what you're doing to yourself or what this looks like to someone who's not addicted. And you do things to yourself that just horrify other people, but to you it just seems totally normal because you're not even considering this. So what I would challenge you guys to do is sit back and look at what you're doing. If you are someone who is thinking about keto or carnivore, look at what you're eating. Start looking at the carb contents of what you're eating and ask yourself, why am I doing this? Does this make me feel good? 30 minutes, an hour later, 2 hours later, a day later, 2 days later, 3 days later, do you feel good after what you have eaten? Is what you are doing supporting the lifestyle you want? Is what you're doing giving you the step you need to take in the direction of being healthier, being happier, being physically capable of doing things you're passionate about, doing things that matter to you? Are you able to do any of this? And if you're not, look at what you're intaking. Look at the carbs, look at the processed junk, look at how it's affecting your body, because all the research is out there of what happens when you eat sugar and you spike your insulin because your glucose in your blood goes through the roof, and then your insulin spikes. Insulin is a growth hormone. That's well known. Look at what's actually going on in your body when you eat these things, and then ask yourself, is there a connection here? Because so many of us are told that you can just eat whatever you want as long as you count the calories, it's all going to be okay. But what chemically is going on in your body? Because you're not a heat-based body, does not have a little furnace with fire on the inside of it that burns that food and then uses the heat to create something. Your body is a biochemical system that reacts to chemically what is inside the food you're eating. So what's happening to your body as you are putting these addictive things inside? What is that resulting in, and what are you going to do to try to swing that in a better direction? Recognizing the addiction like that is so hard. And I get it, because you don't want to have to admit that what you're doing is killing you. I certainly didn't want to admit what I was doing was reducing my life expectancy. But I had no clarity of mind to be able to fight it. Absolutely none. I was completely depressed, full of anxiety, irritable, brain fog to a point I couldn't think, I couldn't function. I was constantly in pain. I was 400 pounds, or close to it at least. I was struggling in ways I can't even put into words, and I didn't know I was until I got out of it and out on the other side. And even then, I didn't deal with the fact that it was an addictive issue. So I fell right back into it. And so I want to share a couple of things with you guys. Like, let's just take a look at this, because this is the kind of stuff, I'm fighting. I feel like online, a lot of times people that have very judgmental outlooks on this and come into the comment section and they bash the recipes and they tell me this is stupid and I'm still fat and, all these kinds of things. And it's crazy. But I pulled up, this is a company, a webpage called October Road, and their whole thing is like resources for addictions and stuff. And there's a blog. It's October Road Incorporated, behavioral health and substance use treatment. And this is out of North Carolina, but there's all kinds of articles all over. I just thought this one was laid out in a way that was really helpful. It's all about helping someone who is recovering from addiction. And I want us to start thinking of these things as addiction. And it's not addiction to something that looks a certain way. This is one of the things people misunderstand about recipes. Just because it looks like noodles doesn't mean it's the same thing. Yes, my stuff looks like noodles. Yes, it tastes a lot like noodles. Not exactly, but it's pretty doggone close and it's really good. That does not have the same biochemical effect in your body. And if you think that it does, and because it looks like something means that it's going to be just as addictive, then you don't understand the biochemical process behind that addiction. And you shouldn't be online commenting, telling other people how to run their life and what to eat, because you don't even understand the basic biochemical element of this. Now, if you're saying they have an addiction to food as a concept, and that's more of a psychological issue, that's completely different. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a biochemical addiction to the glucose that is in these things, the glucose in your blood, the rise in insulin, that whole process, and the junk and the things that we are chemical wise just pumping into our body with all the boxed processed things we buy. So as we're trying to deal with this, and you're using whether it's recipes or whether you want to keep it simple, whatever it is you're doing, let's understand addiction just a little bit, because if we can admit that this is an addiction, then we can actually treat it like an addiction. So first of all, in this blog, there's a little section that says things not to do. And I'm not going to read all this word for word. I'm just going to paraphrase a little bit of this, but it's just October Road Incorporated, and they have this blog on their website, and this is a great article. Things not to do. There is no one way to provide family support in addiction recovery, but there are certain things you don't want to do because they can be harmful or counterproductive to your loved one's recovery. Here are 3 things to avoid. 1, refer to them as an addict. So when people are coming online and they're like, you're addicted, you're this, you're that, you're immediately not supporting what they're trying to recover from. And it says calling someone an addict basically is degrading, but it also perpetuates the temptation to use or relapse and go back to whatever it is they're normally doing, because it creates their identity surrounding the idea that they're an addict. So if you create for someone else that they are addicted to something, not because they've determined that they are, because you are creating that for them, well, then in their mind, you're setting up their identity to be that way. So how do you let go of your identity? How do you get rid of something other people are defining you as? So stop beating people up and telling them they're addicted to things. It's just step 1. Number 2 here is bring up their past. Some people think reminding their loved one of the suffering they endured when they were addicted might serve as motivation, but it's counterproductive to their progress and recovery. So if you keep bringing up how someone has done things wrong because you're trying to support them in this, you're just taking them back kind of in that same way. It's like their identity is in the past and the things they've done. So if people are talking about, look at what you did to yourself and look at the fallout of all of this and reminding people of this. And if you're doing this to yourself, it is completely counterproductive, because the pain you have been through is not a motivator to get over what the issue is. It's hope for the future that matters. And I think this one is really good too. Act as if the addiction never happened. Don't ever act as if it never happened. It's a reality. It has happened. Now, we don't need to focus on what we've done, but that doesn't mean we need to pretend it doesn't exist either. Mm-hmm. That's what I did. I acted as if my addiction never happened the first time. And that's why I never dealt with it, and I went off the rails. So it says you don't want to walk on eggshells around your loved one or treat them as if they're going to break, but you do have to accept certain things will be different in their life and your relationship post-addiction. You can't pretend it never happened. So this is where you have to start making changes in your life. One of those changes was I replaced all of these foods that I wanted to do, to cook for people, to eat myself, whatever. I replaced it with healthier alternatives. And I think this is kind of where Dr. Saiv has his thing of replace something bad with something good. Replace a bad habit with a better habit. Don't leave an empty hole and pretend like it just doesn't exist. Put something better there, because you are going to have to change your habits, and it's going to take time. Okay, here are, I believe there's 10 in this list, and I'm just going to go through very quickly, but it's ways to support someone through this. Number 1, learn about addiction and recovery. Many harmful stigmas and stereotypes that prevent countless people from seeking help. Okay, there are stigmas, there are stereotypes, and these are really harmful things, and you can't achieve sobriety if people are constantly bashing you for all of this and making these stigmas worse. It's primarily due to perpetuated ignorance and untrue beliefs that are passed on through generations, both within families and whole cultures. Seek out reputable sources and inform yourself on the nature of addiction and recovery. So if someone is addicted and they're trying to get help, stop beating them up and treating them like they're subhuman. Flat out. That's why I don't put up with dogma in the comments section. If it doesn't work for you to use recipes, I think it's great. But if you are coming in and beating people up and treating like they are less human because they don't do it the way you do, and they don't do this right, and they don't do that right, you are the problem. Flat out. Just addiction recovery doesn't work that way. 2, offer substance-free fun. This is fantastic. You have to have other things in your life that don't have the substance. Now notice it didn't say make sure the social type interactions have no similarities to the social situations where an addictive substance would have been present. If you go to a party and there is a substance there that you're addicted to, that's a problem. If you go to a completely different kind of party and there is no substance there, that's a problem. It's not the party that was the problem. You can have substance-free fun. You can still do things that matter to you. You can get together with friends and family and have dinner and do that kind of stuff. It's not about what it looks like because of the packaging. It's about the substance that is or is not present.
Mm.
Number 3, vocalize your support. Your loved one may be afraid or embarrassed to ask for help. Make the first move. Vocalize you're there for them and want to help them in recovery. Don't beat people up. Encourage them. Be there for them. Help them. That's what I needed. And quite honestly, other than Ash, and of course my parents, but other than Ash on a daily basis, I didn't have a community. That's why I started my channel, because I didn't know how to find a community. I tried to on Facebook and in several carnivore groups, got my head ripped off by people who said I was doing everything wrong because I tried to share a couple of things that I found helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Major problem. Like you can literally end people's lives by treating them like they're stupid instead of being supportive. I'm not saying that we don't condone them still having the same problem, but we don't beat them up for it either. 4, listen to them. People can become overwhelmed with all of the sessions, meetings, advice, rules they receive in recovery. Sometimes all they want is for you to listen as they talk. So it's very overwhelming for someone who is new to this. And this is something I see in Facebook carnivore groups all the time. Someone who's clearly new to carnivore or keto or whatever asks, is such and such okay? Can I do this? Can I do that? And I mean, they get torn limb from limb by people telling them how stupid they are and how that has nothing to do with this. And I mean, all these different things. And it is absolutely asinine the way people get treated. So we don't do that. And if you're one of those people who feels like you get that treatment, that's why you are very much always welcome here in the Chris Cooking Nashville community. Because if I see people treat you that way, I'm going to put them in their place. And then if I have to, I'm going to boot them from the channel. This is not why we're here. This is not how we treat people. And you are not a failure because you don't already know all of these things. And you're not a failure if you feel overwhelmed, because there's a lot here. This is a journey and it's a process. It is not a light switch. You don't just flick it and go from standard American diet to a perfect carnivore the next day. Doesn't happen. It is a process and a journey, and we're here to support you through that. So we're happy to listen and we're happy to give you advice, but kindly. This is a good one. Number 5, be patient. Recovery takes time, discipline, and commitment. Your loved one is simultaneously experiencing the death of their old life as well as having to build a new, sober life. This is letting go of all of those old things, and it takes time. It takes effort. So don't beat yourself up if you can't do this overnight. Don't compare yourself to the carnivore influencer with a 6-pack who's perfect at this. Mm. Don't compare yourself to that. They had to go through a journey to get there too, and they may not have battled nearly what you're battling. Mm. So it may have taken a lot longer if they had to go through what you went through. 7. Number 6, reduce stress. We talked about the stress for us was one of the things that pushed me in this direction. Family stress is one of the leading triggers that can exacerbate mental health issues such as depression and anxiety, as well as contribute to any kind of a substance relapse. Become aware of unnecessary friction and drama in your home and your relationships. And I think this would also can go to online interactions. Definitely. And all these things. So you can do your part to develop healthy communication, create a safe space for open dialogue and emotions. And this is why carnivore groups on Facebook are so toxic, because there is no safe space for dialogue or conversations. And that's why Chris Cooking Nashville is a community where I fight against this, because I want to make sure to protect the boundaries of that space. You do not have to be perfect to be here. You do not deserve to be tearing yourself down or have other people tearing you down because you're not already perfect at it. You need to be able to reduce stress, and you should not come here to this community and find more stress as a result. 7, be an example. This is a really good one. Whether or not you personally practice sobriety, you can still inspire someone through your own life. This could mean cooking healthy foods, exercising, practicing mindful habits, getting involved in your community, and more. So for the people who are being dogmatic out there and they're beating people up, one, stop beating people up, and two, promote things by being an example to people and encourage them with your example. Because if you try to elevate yourself above others and tell them how great you are and how they're worthless, you're not helping people. You're trying to end their life. You're trying to push them in the exact opposite direction of where you are, because you're trying to show them how much better you are than how they are. So that's a pretty worthless way to be as a human being, and that's why I fight that so vehemently. I'm trying to be an example, and I'm not trying to say you should live exactly like me or look at me as the ultimate example of a carnivore. I'm just trying to be transparent and show you how I'm fighting against these things, and I'm trying to move forward, and I'm trying to be better. And maybe you can take inspiration from that, and you can get ideas of how it's helpful to you by watching how it's helpful for me.
Yeah.
Number 8, set healthy boundaries. And this is one you got to be able to do for yourself as well as be able to do with someone else. Oftentimes boundaries are broken with someone who is actively struggling with any kind of a substance issue. This can continue into recovery. Become aware of any codependency, enabling crutch habits, and other such unhealthy behaviors, but to best support your loved ones. So boundaries. Okay. Maybe a carnivore recipe is a great idea and it's very helpful for you. Maybe getting a little bit loose with the, well, let's just go grab this through the drive-through and I'm just going to have a few French fries of someone else's, whatever. Maybe that's a habit that needs to not be a crutch. Maybe there needs to be a boundary set for yourself and for people that you are maybe trying to support with it. So if you have a family member who's struggling with this, don't sit there and be like, hey, you just a few fries is fine. It's okay. It's not a big, here, go ahead. Don't do that. Set boundaries. And if they say, hey, can I just have a little taste of your blah, 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 blah? No, I don't think that's a smart idea. If you say you really want to get over this issue, I'm going to support you in that, but I don't think it's a great idea for you to do that right now. Being kind and respectful about that is fine. Doesn't mean you have to lie to them and say, oh yeah, sure, I'm sure you're fine. Here you go. Don't enable it. Set healthy boundaries in a loving way. 9, know the signs of relapse. This is important for yourself. Other people too, but especially for yourself if you're a carb addict. Relapse can happen, but it's not a sign of a lost cause. If you go off the wagon, get right back on. Don't beat yourself up and think you're worthless. Don't think you failed. Don't think you can't do this. Yes, you fell off the wagon. Yes, you got to get back on. You can do that. That's okay. It's not a sign your loved one is a lost cause. For many people, relapse is actually an important experience for solidifying their commitment to recovery. I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you should encourage relapse, but if someone does relapse, if you yourself relapse, you're not alone. And in fact, it apparently is an important step sometimes to solidifying why you want to do this. So if you relapse and then suddenly you're like, I'm eating a pizza. Why am I doing this? I feel terrible. It's a great reminder of why you were dedicated to doing things the right way. So give yourself a plan of how you're going to get back out of that and go back to what you need to do.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why when I have a cheat meal and I put it in the little box over here, maybe that's why it actually makes me more successful. I don't know. Maybe there's some element there. Some of the signs of relapse include associating with people and places associated with prior use. You frequenting fast food places, you hanging out in the snack aisle at the grocery store. What are you doing? Suspicious changes in mood or behavior. Oh, like maybe you're starting to get irritable. You're starting to be in pain. You're starting to feel like you can't think clearly. That's what I went through. Glamorizing the past and prior use. Glamorizing those things I used to have. Missing this dish because even though I could make a different version of it that doesn't have the glucose, but I just miss us all sitting around as a family and having that cake and whatever. Like that might be an issue. Maybe not. I don't know. Not going to meetings or engaging in sober social events. When you start to withdraw. I withdrew. I absolutely withdrew. Openly criticizing or rejecting the recovery process. Are you starting to reject and beat up this whole idea of keto and carnivore? Or using things that could be tools that would be helpful to you? Are you starting to think negatively about those things? Just an idea. If your loved one seems to be falling back into old habits or you suspect a relapse has or is actively happening, seek professional help promptly. So again, beating people up online, that's not professional help. That doesn't help people that are struggling with something, right? You're not a therapist. You're not a doctor. Stop going in comment sections and thinking by trashing on people that you're helping them. Doesn't work. And number 10, reach out for help. And this is why this community matters so much. If you or someone you love is struggling with an addiction or perhaps has suffered from a relapse since a rehab program, you can send these people a message, or you can send us here at Chris Cooking Nashville messages, leave comments. You can talk to people in this community. We are here for you. We are here to support you because you need a community. When I realized I needed a community and I didn't have one, I created a channel.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very blessed that it started to blow up when I started sharing my recipes. And now I have a massively supportive community of many people who are amazing and wonderful, and they keep us on track, and we can keep them on track, and we can do this together. And not because we're perfect, not because we never have anything enter our mouth that is somehow not the most ideal food, because we are always on a journey with you, and we realize this is a recovery. And recovery doesn't look like, for me, doesn't look like never having any of these things in my mouth again. It looks like never needing these things or treating them like a substance that I'm abusing, that I'm not consciously doing something with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my recovery looks like. That may not be the same for you. You may need to say, I never want it in my mouth again. That's what recovery looks like. And if that's the case, I support you in that. And I think that's great. So let us know how we can help you so that you can reach that level of recovery from this.
Yes.
So that's my whole rant about this stuff. I'm just going to scroll through here. Lots of people talking in the comments section about being carb addicts. I see Bobby is here. I want to pop this one up. I can't remember when I haven't been a carb addict, and I'm 70.
Wow.
Imagine what that's like to live your life that long and finally at this point be like, I'm a carb addict. And now I'm thinking back, don't think I've ever not been.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people, like Bobby's not alone in this. So many millions and maybe billions of people around the world are in this same kind of situation where they've lived for however long. And it's like, I don't remember not being a carb addict.
Well, and honestly, if you look at, if you think back to even being a child, I think a lot of us were probably trained to be carb addicts.
Absolutely.
I mean, the things that are full of sugar and carbs, like ice cream and sodas,
Yep.
those were the things we got rewarded with when we did a good job
Absolutely.
in school or we did something right.
Absolutely. Here's Travel and Pack says, not a carb addict, but pre-packed foods are so easy that I fell into that trap, not knowing what carbs even were. Right. So you can become almost a carb addict by having ones that you don't even know what you're eating. This is why when everyone says, Chris, when are you going to start a food line that goes into grocery stores? This is why I go, I'm probably never going to.
Yeah,
or if I do, it would be a very limited thing and it would have to be very carefully done.
Mm-hmm.
One, I don't have the money to start a company like that right now because it's very expensive and very difficult, and it would be my entire life's work. But on top of it, when you pack foods in a box and put it in a grocery store, the whole point is profits. And you know why they do that? Because they make it addictive. They make it as cheap as they possibly can, which grains and sugars and all that stuff with subsidies from the government are very cheap and very high profit margin.
Yeah.
So you do all of that, and then you put it on the shelves and everyone buys it like crazy. We have given up control of our health for convenient prepackaged foods,
Mm-hmm.
and it is killing people.
Yeah.
And that's why I try to teach you guys to make it yourself. Because if you make it yourself, you know what goes into it. Even if it's not perfect, you can do so much better at controlling it. And I think it's a big deal.
Absolutely.
Lynn is here, says, I have been a big carb addict for over 65 years now. Going keto and having this wonderful community has changed my life. Still an addict, but it's under control.
That's awesome.
And that's an amazing, amazing outlook. I love it.
Definitely.
And let's see. Oh, Lynette is here, says, good morning, friends. Hi, Lynette.
Hey,
I don't know when you popped in, but hopefully you heard my diatribe on all of this stuff. Keto Chow is a great example. Lynette works with Keto Chow. Keto Chow is a great example of a prepackaged product that if it works for you, if you're happy with the ingredients that are in it, I think is a great option.
Absolutely.
Because they do the work to make sure their ingredients are clean and transparent. And you might not like some of the ingredients. Maybe it doesn't work for you. That's cool. But if they do, they're an amazing company. And I have a Keto Chow link in the description box you guys can use if you want to get 10% off of Keto Chow or their salty electrolytes, any of that stuff. That's one of the few companies. If you want something convenient, that's one of the few places that I would trust going.
Absolutely.
Cindy makes a good point. It's extremely hard for me to watch people eat all the crap foods now, figuring they are not really well. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard for us to sit by and watch that. So, Tina says our processed food is killing us in the United States. I agree. And many other places around the world, because other places are starting to follow the United States' example and go further down that rabbit hole. And it's really rough. Lynette says food addiction is so real. If people only understood how much better they would feel if they cut out the crappy foods. Absolutely. And that's what made the change for me and why it was such a big deal. Tina says, my son was just talking about this yesterday. He craves Oreo cookies and it is worse than drugs.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and if you think about it, sugar is.
It is, yeah.
And so it's like, it's worse than drugs because it's one of the worst ones out there.
True.
It's just, and I get it. I've been there. So I hope he can handle that and, move in a good direction to recover from that over time.
Absolutely.
Cindy says, I saw my son go through those withdrawals from pain pills that were freely given to him years ago. Not good at all. Thank God he is good now. Yes, very glad that he is. But isn't that funny how you can watch people go through this with something like pain pills or some other, even more illegal, hard to get kind of, drug, opioids or whatever. And then afterwards, you stop and you look at someone going through this with sugar and you go, it's the exact same thing. Like keto flu is nothing more than withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah.
It's the same thing for an addict recovering from something else.
Right.
Same thing. Traveling Pack says, what I have learned from this way of eating for a year plus is to be fully aware of my food choices. Absolutely.
That's good.
Knowledge is power. Patricia says it's all about the dopamine hit. That was my late husband and candy and sweet carbs, and everything you were saying is true. Yeah. It's hard. It's really hard. And it happens to people and they just don't even realize it's happening. So it's really wild. Cindy says Gary Taub's book, The Case Against Sugar, is fantastic. One thing they had sugar you wouldn't think about is cigarettes.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Chris Bear is here. And Chris says, the point being your liver doesn't recognize fruit fructose versus soda fructose because it's the same. Nice.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. It is no different in your body.
Very
same thing. Chris, I'm really glad that you're here. Glad that Lynette is here as well. The Chris's are in the house, and Lynette's trying to keep us all in line. So.
Where's Miriam?
That's right. That's right. Where's Miriam to join Lynette's team to try to keep us all under control?
That's right. Yeah.
Let's see. Joyful in Georgia is here. Says I've been off for over a year and have gained back everything I lost. Carb addiction is real. Well, Joyful in Georgia, you know what? I'm glad you're here. And like we talked about, relapse can be part of the process. So now that you know, and you have this new perspective on it by seeing it all come back, now you're back. We are here for you, and we are happy you're here, and we're going to help. Rely on us. Let us know what we can do. Maybe start using some of these recipes as tools to get yourself back the other direction. Whatever you got to do, let us know how we can support you.
Yes.
Good morning to Barry Weems. He is here.
Barry?
If he's still here, hopefully.
Yeah.
Let's see. Carnivore K says just went through the house, selling and moving stress. It would totally affect your health journey. Yeah, yes. Stress will catch up with you. And if you don't have a plan for it, it can get to you. And you know what? If it does affect you, don't beat yourself up. You just go back to what you got to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? John says, John's here, says not exactly a carb addict, but a large amount of carbs will trigger excess hunger and binging for a few days. John,
True.
I love you. That's called being a carb addict.
Yeah.
So I get it. I get it. But admitting what that is for yourself can be very, very helpful. It's not your identity, like we talked about. Like, I'm not saying you are an addict. That's not your identity. But admitting that experience right there, that's what an addiction can look like. Admit that and be whatever it is you got to be to have the tools to fight it. Because that right there is exactly what I went through. And then I just let it get out of control because I kept doing it. We love you, John. We want to see you be successful. So don't be ashamed of it. It's all good.
Speaking from experience.
All good. Speaking from experience, I have no place to judge. Like I get it. So It's all good. It's all good, brother. We got your back here. Traveling Pack says, I really appreciate Chris telling his story. Well, thank you. I'm just trying to share with you guys what I go through. Anna loves the recipes. Thank you, Anna. Yeah. And I know there's a couple of people taking off. I know Janelle said she had to go. Traveling Pack says at least 90% of being healthy is mental learning to make the choice over just being reactive. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Make the choice instead of being reactive. It's a great way to do it. And that's one of those tools that sets you up.
Yeah.
And that's what I had to do. Kathy Ray is here, says it's a rainy day here in Moore, Alabama, but I've caught a break in the rain and trying to get my walk in. You guys have a wonderful day. Thank you to all the veterans.
Aww.
Lovely, lovely, lovely comment. Thank you. Chris Bear says, what, spices? Say it ain't so. I know, man.
He's a wild man.
I'm telling you, I'm just committing a carnivore mortal sin every day.
Yeah.
Beth Mahoney says, I'm a foodie and I love cooking for people, so I get it. My husband is fine with the same things until he's not. I also have my non-keto 96-year-old mother to feed, and she doesn't like most keto foods. I get it. And that's the thing. We're surrounded by people that maybe make different choices than we do, and it's not our prerogative to force them to choose how to do their stuff based on us.
Absolutely.
So as much as we can encourage them, that's completely different than beating them up and trying to force them to make the same choice we do. Patricia says, I was really missing making chunky applesauce and baking bread this week, which is why I love your recipes. I get it. And that's the thing. Like maybe you find a carnivore recipe that you can do instead of these other kinds of things you used to enjoy and replace the time it takes to make a recipe you know not good for you with time it takes to make something totally different. It's not applesauce.
Yeah.
Something completely different. But, I'm going to have this thing, which is really good, which takes some time. And now this replaces what I used to do.
It works.
It's really cool. It's really cool. Beyond Blessed is here, says, I started carnivore around 7 weeks ago because of oxalates causing kidney stones for years. I have had over 60 stones and multiple surgeries, but carnivore has transformed my life in many more ways. That's a great example. Maybe you're not having carnivore for weight loss. Maybe you can handle more dairy and some spices or whatever. Maybe these recipes are great because it's not about an addiction to a carb for you or a psychological issue. Maybe it's an oxalate issue, and that's why you're doing this. And doing these kinds of things keeps the kidney stones away. Like, how cool is that? We all have different reasons.
It's amazing.
Rockin' Keto Amy says, well, I applaud you, Chris. We all have to do this our way to be successful and be able to sustain it. We each have to find our own path, sustainability, and success. Absolutely. Yes. There are some basic concepts that are true across the board. And then you find like the tools along the way that make your approach to it a little customizable, that makes it sustainable and makes you feel like you're having a good time. It's a great thing to do. I love this. Jujubes here says, marry carnivore, but cheat with keto.
That's awesome.
Love it.
Oh, that's funny.
And Cindy says, yes, we all have to experiment to find what works for us. We are all very different, react different to everything. Absolutely.
Very true.
Let's see. Everybody's just kind of talking and supporting each other, which is awesome.
Love to see it.
Yep. Gabrielle is here from the UK. Hi, Gabrielle.
Hello.
So glad you're here. And Chris says, I want 100 pounds of beef. You and me both, brother. You and me both.
Who doesn't?
Let's see. 22QCat says, yes to what Cindy said. I serve my keto foods all the time to non-keto people, and they love it. They never know it's keto, Beth Mahoney.
That's awesome.
Love that. Cindy says, I wouldn't eat the whole pie, but would definitely eat some of every dessert available. Yep, absolutely. And Maritza says, I'm a rice, pasta, and potato, etc. addict. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So you're kind of like me. You're into the starchy, savory ones. 22QCat says, been there and done that with apple pie, cake, frosting, you name it. Just sit and ate the whole container till almost sick. Embarrassing to think back to those days. I get it, but you know what? We are here now, and we're together in it. We're doing great. So
absolutely.
Cindy says, wouldn't eat the whole thing. Let's see. I read that one, didn't I?
Yeah.
But I got some of every sweet, all chips, etc. Yeah. Let's see. And
it's cool, by by the way, to read people's
yeah, we're just kind of going through
and all this. Yeah,
we're just kind of going through
and all this. Yeah, so many good points, good comments.
Yeah, I'm just kind of going. Let's see. Traveling Pack says, I've made Chris's carny buns and mashed potatoes to try to give my almost 80-year-old dad a better option. That's awesome. That's awesome. John says, I only went to keto because I was diagnosed type 2 diabetic and didn't like the side effects of metformin. So I searched alternative type 2 treatment on YouTube and found Dr. Barry's video, Cure Type 2 in 6 months. If anyone has type 2, you got to go watch Dr. Barry's type 2 in 6 months cure video. Just any of his stuff on diabetes is just fantastic. So.
Yes.
Carnivore K says, I'm a grazer. That's something I have to watch. Carnivore has helped that greatly. Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely. Love Carnivore K's story. I think I may actually, we were intending to film that and then we didn't get around to it and I honestly just totally forgot and then they left. But I think we might maybe see if Kay wants to do an interview at some point on the channel in the future. I think that would be really good. She has a great story. So, Abby May is here. The food pantry is my primary source. This presents many challenges. Absolutely. Totally understand. So again, it's not the pantry that's the problem. It's the things that are inside it.
Yeah.
It's not the packaging. It's the substance that's present. So if we remove the substance out of the pantry, we put it in the pantry with all of the good things, that's a great tool to treat it. So we're here for you, Abby. You let us know how we can be helpful. Let's see. Gabrielle says, I knew I was addicted to sugar, but it wasn't until I went carnivore that I realized what a carb addiction I had. Every time I've given in, I have had terrible indigestion and returned asthma.
Oh.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the thing. The side effects, we just don't understand until we're off of it. And then we go back and we're like, man, this is what this was doing to me. It's incredible what we do to ourselves. It's amazing how much our body can handle.
Yes, it really is.
So John has such a great story when he talks about this. His A1C went from 6.5 down to 5.6 in 6 months. After 3 years, his A1C is down to 5.3. Wasn't type 2 till I was 49 because I love meat and most of my snacks were meat and not sugar. So ketovore was natural.
Oh,
amazing.
Very cool.
Amazing. Absolutely love it. And Patricia and Cindy are talking back and forth with everybody. Fantastic. This is great. Darth Carnivore says, Rockin' Keto 80. Heard this phrase the other day about comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Come on now. That's
absolutely
awesome.
So if you're comparing yourself to people, you got to stop that.
Yeah.
You got to stop that. You are not on the same journey as everyone else. You are on your own journey. Daily take steps to recovery. That's what it takes. John says, if I want something sweet, it will not be a store-bought keto product. It will be a keto chow based snack, usually keto chow ice cream made with a Ninja Creamy. And that's a great, great idea. And Cindy says, please post the link for the article in the description when you can. Yep, I certainly will. I will do that as soon as we're done with this. I'll drop that article in for you guys so you can go reference it. Cindy says, totally agree, Amy. Comparing yourself and your success to others is not a good thing. It can be very depressing when what one is succeeding with does not work for you. Absolutely. And this is also why we don't jump in here online and tell people you should do this and this will happen.
Yeah.
Because you can't guarantee that. You don't know that. It's just not, it's not the way it works. I think there's basic concepts. Keto or carnivore, it's going to work for everybody in one way or another. What the details are of what works best for you within that spectrum, I don't think any of us has a right to try to tell people how to do that. That is you have to do the work towards your own recovery and find out how it works best.
Yes.
And let's see. Yep, everyone's encouraging Maritza. I know she was talking about her daughter being plant-based, and that makes it hard.
Yeah,
because she's surrounded by high-carb foods and stuff, and it's easy to fall off the wagon. Totally understand. Darth Carnivore says, I've heard that addiction thrives in isolation, meaning community is a powerful antidote. Love it.
That is really good.
Yeah.
Really true.
John makes a good point. I ate sad for 3 days, pasta and sodas after a year of ketovore, and I learned it's not worth the consequences and so much more. Hasn't happened again. Carbs are a choice, and a bad choice at that. Yep.
Good for you, bud.
Love it. You're doing great, John. We really, really love your stories being shared here.
Mm-hmm.
Here's to our health is here. Says, I hear a lot of pain in your voice. I'm so sorry. What you do is needed and appreciated. What a blessing to have a great and healthy alternative to the things we love. Well, here's to our health. Thank you. There is a lot of memory of pain in my voice. There is no longer current pain in my voice, although there is very frustrating, angry feelings towards people who beat other people up for it, because I did used to be that guy that got beaten up for it, and I don't want to watch that happen to other people.
Yeah.
So, and Rockin' Keto Amy says, just watch the YouTube video Health Roundtable with Callie Means, Casey Means, and RFK demo September, and Big Grocery adds highly addictive substances to our food products. Yep. Absolutely. It's pretty well known that all the chemicals they add in there are addictive. And I mean, they have scientists that put those foods together. You can't tell me they don't know they're addictive.
Right.
Like, if they don't know they're addictive, then they're hiring really bad scientists.
True.
Tanya is here, says, such an awesome topic. Opened my eyes to many things. Time to buckle up my belt and get stronger. This past week has been a rough one, but back to what I need to do. And that's what it is. You just go right back to what you got to do, because we're all fighting this together, and we're here for it, Tanya. So thank you so much for sharing. Rockin' Keto Amy says, I got off opioids in mid-2000s after my surgery, replaced them with food. Now I'm recovered from both.
Aww.
That's amazing. Congrats.
Good for you.
We're so glad. Steven says, Chris, you make other feel welcome to your channel is amazing. Your eloquent explanations and personal experience is very motivating and is certainly something that one would expect. Well, Stephen, from a self-proclaimed redneck guitar player, there's the other half. Stephen, thank you so much. Well, what can I say? I just do my thing and I pick the strings. Yeah. John says, but I don't crave carbs, just food in general. Yeah. And sometimes the crossover between carbs or just food in general, there's a lot of stuff in that, and there's many different ways that can sort of play out. So you just got to keep working on your journey and finding what it is that helps you. Chris says, oh yeah, inbox 0. I'm officially winning today. Good for you, man. Some days I don't know if I'm ever going to catch up.
Right.
So Tracy Fisher's here, says, everyone is different. I can't eat fruit at this time without huge blood sugar rise. Yeah, Tracy, I get it. And you know what? Honestly, doing keto and carnivore, fruit needs to be a very rare thing, period. Even if you can handle some of it, like Ash has a little fruit, but it's like berries that are the lower carb version, and it's only on occasion. I very rarely have anything like that, because fruit is just full of fructose. So John says, a whole pie is excessive. I only ate a quarter of several pies. Love it. And there's Cindy dropping in that type 2 diabetes video from Dr. Barry. Thank you, Cindy.
Awesome.
You guys go watch that if that is in any way in relationship to you. And even if you're not diabetic, still a good watch.
Absolutely.
Really, really good info. So Andy is here, says, with holiday events coming up, I'm determined to stick to my goal for health. Steady blood sugar by politely saying no to certain foods will also bring some keto options to events. And that's how we create a tool that leads us one step towards being a better version and a healthier version and closer to recovery. I think that's amazing. Annette is here, says, I lost almost 40 pounds during the holidays last year. My husband and I have been struggling since this summer. We do fine during the week, but on the weekend we fall off. So this is a good point. So what happens during the weekend that makes it difficult for you? And what could you use as a tool to remove the social setting or the thought process? I mean, like this is addiction recovery type stuff, right? Like from this article, which I'll link in this video after we're done. What can you do to remove whatever it is that's triggering this? How do you make the change so that on the weekends you don't end up falling off?
Yeah.
What do we do? How do you do that? Start looking for that solution, and we're here for you. And don't feel bad. I struggled far harder than you're struggling. So believe me, I understand, and you can do this. We just got to find the right tool that works for you, that helps you guys, and just take it one day at a time. And you're doing great, and we're very happy you're here. Deborah Dixon here says, sugar is a worse drug than others because A, it's readily available and in most prepackaged foods, and B, so much food turns to sugar in our bodies. Yes, it's very prevalent.
Yep.
Sean says, YouTube isn't very smart. When I'm watching keto carnivore videos, they give me ads for sugary processed junk. They need to learn how to read the room. Yeah, YouTube just kind of does their own thing with with that. They just sort of put whatever they want. And I mean, you can go in and block ads from certain companies if you want, but most of the time I don't do that because this is how I make the living that we need. And if they put the YouTube ad up there, I get paid, and hopefully then you guys go, this is ridiculous, and you skip it and you come back to what it is we need to do. So we can't hide from it. It's a real thing. It's all around us. So we just have to learn to have the knowledge to say no. So, well, guys, we're caught up on comments. Thank you so much for listening to my very long story. I would love for you to put in the chat or in the comments after I have ended this live, if you have any other elements of your personal carb addiction story. What things are you doing? Like, what tips do you have to kind of use tools to get yourself away from this? We would love to hear what you guys are doing, and so would everyone else who comes to watch this replay later. Put in the comments and tell people what it is you use as tools to help you get over this, especially if you're like, yes, I'm a severe carb addict, and this is what I'm doing to get away from it. So we just appreciate you guys being here. We love every single one of you. If you have any questions, you can find all of my information in the description box, as well as this article I was reading from. You can always send us a message. Find us on social media. Find me at chriscookingnashville.com. Contact me there. And tomorrow, we're going to have a live cooking event going on tomorrow night, backstage with Chris at 6 p.m. And it's going to be a big giveaway. We're giving away 10 knives from Knife Saga. It's going to be amazing, but you have to be there live to win, because we're going to do some stuff in the live chat. You're going to be able to try to win those. So if you guys are free, please come see us on the main Chris Cooking Nashville channel tomorrow at 6 p.m. for some fun and a big time giveaway sponsored by Knife Saga. In the meantime, you guys do everything you need to take one step towards recovery. We absolutely love you guys, and we are here for you, whatever you need to support your journey. And if you have questions about any of our journeys, feel free to ask. We'll talk about it in another Monday morning live stream. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the Chris Cooking Nashville Studios channel, which is linked in the description box if you are watching this on the main Chris Cooking Nashville channel. And if you find this on the Chris Cooking Nashville Studios channel, my main channel is going to be linked in that description box. In case you didn't know, I do carnivore and keto recipes over there to give you tools to take a step towards recovery. So, guys, thank you so much for being here. We love every single one of you. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you very soon in the kitchen tomorrow, and coming up on Saturday for a recipe video next week here, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time for Monday morning motivation. This is Chris Cooking Nashville, my beautiful wife, Ash Taylor. You guys eat your meat. Love your life. Take the steps you need toward recovery. We'll be here for you, and we'll see you guys very soon. Bye, y'all.
Bye.